the athleticism, the spectacle, the security concerns. There's so much to think about as the Paris Olympic Games gets underway. And here to help us process all of it and to prepare is Good Morning Jacksonville anchor and at First Coast News, my former colleague, Lou Turner.
Hey, Ann, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
We're also joined by retired federal law enforcement officer, safety analyst, and professional risk consultant, Mark Baughman. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Ann.
So, Lou, you have reported on the Olympics for years. You've attended Olympics in the past. I can't remember which one.
London, 2012.
All right.
Yeah, I was at those games. I was not a participant. I was covering those games.
To be clear.
To be fully clear. And I could understand if someone could get that confused.
Sure. It's
right.
You know.
But yeah, so kind of had lived that. You talk about heightened security, and I know Mark will get into that as well, but unbelievably thorough the way they treat these games.
Yeah. So with that experience, what are you most excited about as we head into the Paris Games?
Well, I am thrilled to see what they do on the Seine. You mentioned it there in the Open. This 10,500 athletes riding in this river parade. I mean, of course, the events themselves are going to be amazing, but how are they going to do that? I'm just wondering. I know there's always a lot of surprises. If you think back to like Beijing, that was a phenomenal opening ceremony. But that opening ceremony with the surprise is every country going to get their own barge? I mean, what kind of parade are we doing here? So I'm thrilled and excited to see that. And then. I think we take for granted here in Jacksonville, you mentioned local contenders, but seeing the locals, the guys that you kind of rub elbows with, you might see on a jog going down the street going for gold.
I want to talk about some of the local athletes in a minute, but
sure.
I mean, just to speak on that spectacle that we're, going to see, I guess it's really afternoon here, right?
Right. So, yeah, it'll be a noonish, event. And I am curious. Of course, there'll be a live opportunity to watch that, and then there'll be a primetime event as well. That'll be kind of condensed and something that you can watch, at the house during dinner time as well. But and then we jump right into it. It's like there's no delay. You've got events like essentially happening right now. I mean, men's soccer just got pummeled by France, unfortunately.
Plus, there was a crazy game yesterday between Argentina and Morocco.
Yes, some wild stuff already happened, and that's really cool. But yeah, the opening ceremony it's going to be one of the most unique that I think we've ever seen. So.
And so this is the first time we're going to have a ceremony that happens on the outside of a stadium. I mean, this is a full 4-mile trip, and the guy that's directing it, I mean, he's nuts. He's like he's done.
Nuts is a great way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, very ambitious. He did a 10-hour or 24-hour play that kind of mashed up a couple of Shakespearean classics, and there was pillows in the audience so people could sleep during it because it was this epic performance. I mean, his bar is pretty high for. Interesting.
I am hoping, and again, I don't know. I have no insight because a lot of these are surprises. I hope there's a lot of Les Mis reference. I want some Jean Valjean. I want some. I want some going into the Seine. I mean, they gotta prove that they're going to do open water swims in that thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's test it out.
Let's roll it. So, in terms of safety, Mark, there's so many considerations, but even just surrounding the spectacle of this event that we're talking about, I've seen stories where the director, Thomas Jolly is his name, but he had to run by all, the various permitting authorities and the president, the plan. Some of them got shot down for safety reasons, including a plan to have a bridge where people were going to be tap dancing, thousands of people. And they decided that if that happened with that many people on that bridge, it would collapse. So there are different kinds of safety considerations, but I'm guessing you're thinking primarily about the threat of things like terrorism.
Exactly. And the fact that it's not an arena or a stadium that they're going to be walking into, you have a 4-mile stretch of water, presents a lot of other obstacles for law enforcement to safeguard people, not just the participants in the Olympics, but as well as the people there. So, you have a waterway. You're going to have dive teams. You're going to have all kinds of measures and searching devices along the way that are capable of looking down into the water to ensure that there's no explosive devices. You mentioned a bridge. Bridge is the most vulnerable thing. I mean, so aside from bridges collapsing with weight, it's, your people getting up underneath the bridges again and somehow putting some type of explosive device on there, as well as, again, an outside venue versus an inside venue. We see this right now with former President Trump, who's now in an inside venue, and the Secret Service is saying, hey, look, you might not want to do these outside venues. It creates a lot more of a risk to everybody who's going to participate, be involved, and be observers.
And that you raise a good point, because that recent assassination attempt, I mean, we're talking about 4 miles of protection. That wasn't even a half mile away where that shooting took place. Am I right? I mean, it was pretty close.
It was less than a half mile.
Less than a half mile. And so we know that, you know, the need for a perimeter is significant, but I don't know how you patrol something that broad.
You find a way to do it with all the resources that are available to you. I mean, it's Paris, France. It's France. They've had a lot of issues with terrorism and terrorist strikes. That's bad. The good thing is they've had a lot of issues with it, so they know how to prepare for it. They know how to maybe safeguard certain venues, maybe even better than the U.S. in some ways because of all the attacks, and that's unfortunate. But that's, these things occur. You go back and look at what you do. I have a great familiarity with the Atlanta Olympics back in '96, and I can tell you that during then, around the Olympic Village, you still had a 1 mile perimeter around the Olympics Village that they would not, they patrolled it. They did not. Anybody wasn't just allowed in. I mean, even though we have constitutional rights and Fourth Amendment rights, those rights somewhat come into play as everybody gets searched, things get checked out, garbage cans get tipped over. Suspicious vehicles, everything gets documented. The biggest problem is always communication amongst everybody. Then Al Gore, who was the vice president, he said, hey, we don't have enough security measures in Atlanta. They brought in 5,000 federal agents from various agencies, DEA being one of them.
You were involved with that?
I was involved with it from a supervisory standpoint. I was not there, but I did have agents there at the time.
And despite that, there was a bombing.
Right. They still got in, right? So there you have it. I mean, I'm not saying that everything's 100% shore-proof. It's just not.
This, from our understanding, there's going to be 45,000 police officers and 1,900 reinforcements from other countries around Europe, another 10,000 military troops available. So that is a really heavy presence. Does that strike you as sufficient to do the job?
I don't know sheer numbers. I can't speak to that. I just know that what makes it more challenging is it's uncommon. It's not like any other Olympics. You're not having a venue where the athletes come inside and everything's pretty much in a smaller perimeter area. You're talking about a huge area. So the vast numbers that are going to participate, you probably have to, it's a force multiplier. Having more real bodies out there in a law enforcement and observation capacity is, and obviously the technology's gotten better. I mean, you're going to have a lot of aerial technology as well aiding in this. But again, yeah, it's going to be daunting.
It's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Lou.
I was going to say, I was listening to a report. I was listening to some of the security. You talk about aerial. I've heard they've got drone submarines that are going to be going through the river. And Mark, I'm curious. Like, it's almost like it's a law enforcement Olympics as well, because the reinforcements are coming. You've got law enforcement coming from the United States of America, countries all over the world, and I'm just it is amazing the resources I'm hearing about.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are specific challenges. I mean, this is not just one person you're protecting going down the river. This is, I don't know how many
10,500. That'll be going, minus the surfers who will be in Tahiti. But it's an amazing an amount. And one of the kind of double-edged swords perhaps with the security is with France, they're using a lot of outdoor space, which you look back at certain countries, China or Greece, the financial crisis they get into when they build these massive arenas and these stadiums and this infrastructure, and they spend all this. So one of the things Paris and France in general was doing was, we're not going to spend a ton of money. We're going to use facilities we already have in place. That's one of the benefits of France, and we're going to use a lot of our outdoor space. So that's a positive. Rather than not spending all this money and going into massive debt as a nation.
And this is one of the least expensive Olympics.
Correct. But then you run into what Mark is talking about, this massive outdoor 4 mile parade down a river, which is just going to be a very unique thing. Again, very thrilling.
We're talking about the Olympics with from a safety standpoint, from kind of a more fun standpoint in terms of talking with Lou Turner about the athletes, Mark Baughman about safety. You can join our conversation by calling 904-549-2937, or you can email comments or questions to First Coast Connect at wjct.org if you're watching the Olympics. If you know somebody who's in the Olympics, we would love to hear from you. I do want to turn to the athletes because that's obviously a fun topic.
Sure.
And there are a bunch of locals. Lou, you've been covering them. You've been interviewing them. Some we know, some are new to us. So who should we be watching from the First Coast?
Okay, so the very first week out of the gate, I know we know the names Caleb Dressel and Ryan Murphy, right? And if you don't know the names, that's fine too. I mean, swimming is one of those things I think we all kind of dive into and sink our teeth into every 4 years, right? Unless you're a diehard, unless you're a swim family or a swimmer yourself, it's those two names. I know they've got a couple of Olympics under their belt, right? So we might take for granted how elite these two are, and that they are truly from right here. Caleb Dressel, Clay High guy, right? Green Cove Springs. He swam. We always hear the Bowls connection with him. He swam for the Bowls club, and that's a super elite club, obviously, an elite school, and the 63 Olympians they've produced. I mean, that's something. But Caleb has an opportunity to go down as one of the greatest Olympians of all time. Low key, I mean, I don't know if we need to hammer this home. He's got 7 gold medals. The only medals this guy has ever won is gold, right? So he's got 7 gold medals. He's going to be competing in potentially up to 5 events. He's got a 50 free, which he'll go in as one of the favorites, and a 100 butterfly, and then he'll have a couple of potential relay events as well. If the guy gets 3 gold medals, which is not out of the realm of possibility, he'll be at 10. That would put him as the second person ever to have double-digit gold medals behind Michael Phelps. Now, he's not going to catch Phelps at 23, right? That's not going to happen. But he would be potentially the guy from Green Cove Springs, right? A neighbor of ours, the second greatest Olympian of all time. Just by pure gold medals alone, that measure of a man. I mean, that's amazing.
When is he going to be competing? Do we know?
So first week, right out of the gate. So swimming, we have opening ceremony Friday. Swimming starts Saturday, and we'll start to see the guys. Swimming is kind of a drawn out affair. It's a week, a solid week, that first week of the Olympics. So you'll catch prelims, semis, and then finals swimming for gold towards the end of the week.
And we're expecting still to see this in the River Seine. Like this is
no. So the pools, they have an aquatic center, so they'll be swimming in pools. Now the open waters, the folks who are going to be swimming whatever the swimming equivalent of the marathon is, the open water swim.
Okay.
They're actually going to be in the Seine, but no, thank God the 50-meter butterfly will. Or the 100-meter butterfly will be in the aquatic center.
okay.
They got set up.
And so besides him, we're
Yep.
looking at another local.
Yep. We got Ryan Murphy, a swimmer. Now he did go to Bowles School. He's from Ponte Vedra Beach. He could potentially go down as one of the greatest backstrokers of all time. Got to watch him. He's going to do the 1 and 200 back. The guy's got he's got a handful. He's got 4 golds himself. So we'll watch him.
No slouch.
No slouch. And he's Olympic veteran. But you introduced me to Poe Pinson.
Oh yeah,
Which is an awesome local Olympian.
So remind us who she is.
So Poe is Fernandina Beach, right? Amelia Island, good Nassau County girl. She is a youngster and is going to be skateboarding in the Olympics, right? So she's
and that's a first, right?
Yes,
This is our...
yes, 19 years old. She had an opportunity actually. So 3 years ago, 16. She would have been 16. Had an opportunity to be in the previous go round in Tokyo. Just missed out, but this time, I mean, she'll be there. And I'm ignorant to. I was trying to study up a little bit on how the scoring of skateboarding works in this, but I a lot of times you'll have these betting favorites on who's going to medal. I think she's got as good a shot as any. And I know up in Amelia Island they're going to have watch parties, and I've got she's doing that July 28th. So I mean that's coming up right around the corner. So we'll get to watch her do a prelim and a final that day.
She's a really sweet girl. Her dad is just one of her biggest champions.
Mm-hmm.
I think he gave her first skateboard when she was like
Kenny, right? Yeah, Kenny Pence. Yeah, yes. And again, it's one of those cool situations where he said he had no idea about skateboarding, didn't know anything about it until she decided to pick it up, and she just went with it. A lot of times there's like, well, my dad was a swimmer, and my mom, you come from like this genetic stock, but I think she's just cut her own, way with it, and the family's kind of, making them obviously celebrating massively, and there'll be a lot of parties up there to kind of watch her and cheer her on.
I love that they call her a street skater. She really has
Correct.
kind of street cred.
If you've ever been like up to Fernandina Beach, there's the skate park that's on the beach, right? It's right there by the big fort there and Fort Clinch, sorry, and then right on the beach, and that's where she learned all this. I mean, it's amazing, the talent.
Homegrown. There was some folks that didn't quite make it, but you did cover. Christian Miller was a Creekside kid.
Yes, Christian Miller. He is going to the University of Georgia. The kid's got such a wonderful future, such a good head on his shoulders. So Christian ran the 100 meter in the Olympic trials, made it all the way to finals, and he finished 5th. All right, so they take the top 3. And, I think him and his coach, Ricky Fields there from Creekside, from St. John Strider's, his running club, that he told me the goal was, let's get top 6, because if we get top 6, we're going to be in that relay pool. So maybe we're not going to be that top 3 to go, individually run, but I could potentially see this young man in the Olympics. But with U.S. track and field, just because you're in the relay pool does not mean necessarily you're going to go. Mm-hmm. So they picked a guy who a little bit older, a professional, runs Diamond League, which is a European professional track league, who does relays for a living basically. And so the young man missed out. And now it was a lot of waiting. It was a lot of anticipation. And if it were me at 18 and I had that massive heartbreak, I would have been in my room throwing my Nintendo against the wall. But he has such a good head on his shoulders. He's like, he just puts a lot of it in his faith. And he said, hey, listen, God's going to put me where he wants me to be when it's time to be there. And I am certain when we're sitting here talking about this in 4 years for the LA Olympics with Mark, and we're talking security and we're talking local athletes, we're going to be talking about Christian being a tremendously high probability contender to get a gold medal in that 100. I mean, to earn the title fastest on earth. So
you were talking about genetic heritage for some of these athletes, and there is a soccer player whose dad played for JU, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize. It's a Mihailovic, 25 years old.
Yes.
He's a midfielder. He's been playing for Major League Soccer, but his father, Alex, played for JU in the 70s and was, an all-star there. His jersey was retired, and so this kid is going to be he's older than the 23 limit, but they're allowed to take a couple older players.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. You've got a marathoner that we need to watch as well from Mandarin High School.
Who's that?
It's Eduardo Garcia. He's going to run for U.S. Virgin Islands. Okay, so we got that. So watch him. He graduated Mandarin High School 13 years ago. Now, a very young woman, and again, it's the name pronunciation, so forgive me. It's Lucero Mejia Arce. She's going to swim for Guatemala, but she's just going to be a junior. So think about
She's Bowles?
She's Bowles.
Yeah.
So a rising junior. Just finished her sophomore year. Good enough to qualify and to swim for Guatemala. I mean, it's not just, Team USA is such a hard team to make swimming. It's so highly competitive. It's not like you can just say, well, I'm going to go to Guatemala. It's going to be easier. It's not.
Yeah.
There's an Olymp. You have to meet, just because you say maybe you're the best swimmer in Guatemala, you still have to meet the Olympic standard. So this young woman is extremely gifted as just a sophomore. So watch that name, watch that space, because to think of that age on this massive stage is awesome.
And Bowles has this international, population of students. So there's also someone going to be competing, representing Peru, someone representing Jamaica, but they're all Bowles kids.
That's correct. Yeah, and as we mentioned, through history, dating back to David and Martin Zubero in 70s, 80s, 90s, you've got 63 Olympians that have come, that Bowles claims,
Wow.
So either high school, either graduates from the school, or they've got a very massive just swim club. Like when we were talking about Caleb, his club work was done. He'd drive from Green Cove to go to Bowles to swim in that pool, and obviously the results kind of speak for themselves.
We've got a call from Curtis on the north side. Good morning, Curtis. Go ahead.
Good morning. My sister, it is so beautiful that when I listen to your program. Thank you so much for the information about the homegrown talent. I knew of the swimmer, but I had no idea of the skateboarder out of Fernandina. That's beautiful, man. I thank you so much for this, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Curtis, for calling. It is fun to follow these local athletes and to to share their stories as you've done. I mean, you really get to know them on some personal levels often.
It's amazing. You get a little starstruck. The best coverage, and this isn't bragging about the local news element of it, but like if you were to go go to ESPN, or you go to like these major networks to look for Olympics coverage, it's not as extensive as some of the local hometown newspapers and television stations. And I say that because the Olympics, while it's a global event, is very, very local. You find your stories on a local level. It's not like rooting for the Atlanta Braves baseball team where no one's local. You're just rooting for the city, but you're finding they're just kids and adults that are right down the street from you, and you get this local. So you want to learn more about Team USA gymnastics. Sometimes you just read the Houston newspaper. That's where the training center. You pick up great coverage like that. But the Olympics, while global, is so local.
Mark, is it possible for someone who's got a law enforcement background like yourself to watch and enjoy the Olympics, or do you find it just you're on edge because you're anticipating or looking for, problems?
I think you can't help but watch. I mean, obviously you have a job to do, and you have a specific assignment usually, because it's again, this is a big venue, a big task. I mean, in Atlanta, you had the whitewater rafting somewhere else. You had archery somewhere. You may have been just at that event, and that was your security assignment, or you could have had the village itself. But yeah, I mean, you can't help but watch some of it. To go back to what I was saying about security doesn't matter until it matters, right? So you got to, and when they build these venues, I don't think they don't always take security into consideration.
Yeah.
They try, I think they do, honestly, but they want to have the creativity of the venue and what they're going to do with it and how many people they're going to entertain and things along those lines.
One thing that's interesting in terms of security and prevention is the use of AI. And I think we're seeing that really expanded in this format. They're going to be having AI comb through hundreds of hours and hundreds of thousands of camera angles, trying to identify something that looks like it could be a problem, which is an extraordinary metric, right? They're looking for something that could be a behavior or an action that someone's taking. So the use of AI is going to be a part of this whole matrix.
Again, that's going to aid greatly because it helps not having to put maybe people there and move personnel around in that measure. I can tell you, like, when I was with DEA, we worked Pasadena horse shows all the time. And we had the facial imagery machines, which were very kind of archaic compared to what's out there now. But we were doing it basically to look for, because a lot of the cartel members would buy Pasadena horses was a big thing for them. And going to these shows.
Really?
Yeah. And we ended up seizing a lot of them when we made drug cases against them because they invest a lot of money in these horses. Especially in the Ocala area, you'd see a lot of it. So the facial imagery machines were used, and we would rely sometimes on it because you would catch a fugitive that way. I mean, sometimes they would change. I mean, they had enough money to do reconstructive surgery to sometimes change their appearance a little bit. But all in all, now with the AI the way it is, I think there's so many advantages that'll give law enforcement a step towards doing their job better and more efficient. And let me add something else here. You have Simone Biles, right? That she's a really good gymnast, right? And she's phenomenal, and she's all over TV. She's great with these commercials. She represents the U.S. well. Her alone, she's going to have her own personal security probably. I mean, there's people that probably stalk her, that say things to her, that write things about her, and so she's got to have. These individual athletes sometimes command more security depending on what the event is. Again, I'm not downplaying swimming, but gymnastics draws a lot of people.
Yep.
And it's going to require a lot of security measures.
That's right. He mentioned Ocala, and Lou, that kind of reminds me that in recent years you've been doing average guy. Well, the last cycle you did average guy Olympics.
Yes. Well, I think it was a comedian once said, I think it was attributed to Bill Murray, I don't know if he actually said it, but every Olympic event should have one regular person in there for context. Right? Just for perspective.
To see what the rest of us could do.
And that's 100% what I'm doing, with these, just, comparing an average guy time. Because if you watch NASCAR and all the cars are going fast, but you put a Corolla on that track and you see truly how fast they're going. So I'm the Corolla.
You're the Corolla.
I'm the Corolla in this scenario. Great car, by the way.
Sure.
fuel efficient.
Pacer
Right
up
there,
there.
ready to go. But
100%.
but average nonetheless.
And so
We're
you're
gonna-
actually doing a competition today after this
We're
show.
going to go run the 100-meter. That's if you're watching online, you're watching the stream. I am dressed down, and Mark always dressed so beautifully. And I did wear a T-shirt and shorts. And so we're going to
You got to be ready.
Got to be ready because you can go right down to Beachside High School, get coached up, and do that thing. You mentioned Ocala, and horses came to mind, and you're thinking security. You know, horses have to have their own passports. Horses have to have their own passports. The answer is yes. Yes,
That was a question.
That was a
I'm
question. Sorry, I didn't know if I was
dumbfounded.
asked. I said it as a statement. Did you know? But yes, the horses that travel over for dressage and the jumping and all that, they go in these luxury aircraft, and every one of them have their own passports in order to make sure the correct horse is making their way over there.
I feel like there's a pun that I'm missing.
Gotta
That I
be.
should,
Yeah, we don't have the horse sense for it.
or the horsepower to carry out the
Like
joke.
in the
as we should.
Corolla. We'll figure it out one day.
It is fun to talk to both of you. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Mark
you.
Baughman, Lewis Turner.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for having me.
And good luck with the competition today.